serious people with confirmed below-average intelligence. How has your intelligence affected your life experience? And what would you want the world to know about what it's like to be you? Story 10. I have one for this. I was born with a severe case of hydrocephalus that no one caught on to until I went nearly full potato at 18, and then comatose a few days after when I turned 19. Turns out, all the issues that I had with learning things, memory retention, emotional maturity, etc., that was all affected by the water pressure building up on my brain. I wasn't being a lazy slacker kid. I worked my off to pass my classes and graduate. I just couldn't process things well, so a lot of it came as difficult for me. In my haze of a memory, during the first visit to the neurologist, it was determined that my condition was so severe, I shouldn't have progressed past middle school learning, and most, if not all, people diagnosed with the level of pressurization and compression of the brain, as I was were in assisted living facilities, just surviving as shells. After needing a second surgery a year later, my brain eventually started firing the signals for mental maturity, but the process was still pretty difficult. Had to learn how I learned best. Things didn't process the same way. I've also adapted to overcompensating to make up for the lack of intelligence. Didn't have the work smarter option most times, so I just worked harder. It's been about 12 years since the last surgery, and I've grown immensely during that time as a person, but the work harder to overcompensate is still a huge issue for me. We still don't know how off I really am cause no one caught it early enough, and that's a really isolating feeling. Story 2. I have a global information processing disorder. If our brains were computers running at 60 frames per second normally, mine runs around 45 on a good day, not quite enough to really be noticeable, as it might in some people with Down syndrome for the sake of example, but enough to lower my IQ and cause problems in my everyday life. In one of the lucky ones, I can function relatively normally, discounting autism and the occasional epileptic seizure. However, I'm also fully aware of this deficit and how high my IQ could be, talking slowly or getting annoyed because I've asked you to repeat something or pushing me out of the way when I don't react fast enough. That's just rubbing it in. I can't change how well I process information. Believe me, I've asked my doctor about it, and other people have tried before me. I'm stuck where I'm at in this regard, and it's hard to try harder when I'm already running at 110 just to keep up with the rest of the world. Story 3. Late to the thread. I was given an intelligence test in 6th or 7th grade. A group of us were given it for some study. The person entering the data into the scoring matrix misplaced a decimal point on mine. They told my mother I had the IQ of a 5-year-old. It took a week for them to figure out the mistake. For a week straight, everyone treated me different. I was the one who answered the phone when they called with a correction. My family still brings it up 20 years later. Story 4. I have Asperger's. Please don't be rude when you have to repeat yourself. Do not expect me to get a hint. If I don't get it, break it to me gently. No car radio and talking at the same time. Too much stimulus. May appear to be angry in loud restaurants. Too much stimulus. Am I doing something socially weird? Talk to me about it nicely in private. I probably didn't realize it was weird and can stop. Please don't ditch me as a friend when, not if I screw up, at least try to talk it out. Story 5. My triplet sister was born with a brain bleed and partial damage to her brain. We were all 3 months premature, and it happened to affect her more than me or my brother. She has a lower IQ and was put into special education classes in 2nd grade. I would never consider her to be dumb in any way. We have a very close relationship, and we communicate very well. She looks completely normal and has really nothing wrong about her besides her lower IQ. We live in a narcissistic household, and she was obviously dubbed as the black sheep and was bullied throughout school as well. When we were younger, I also ganged up on her with the rest of my family, because I thought it was normal at 7 years old. We've definitely gotten closer as we've gotten older, and we kind of stick like glue against the rest of our family. We're both very empathetic and kind, and a lot of my other family members are complete bullies, so we seem a tiny out of place. She's doing well now that we've finished high school, and she's gotten a boyfriend recently who seems very kind, and she will hopefully getting a job soon and moving out by next year. I tell it'll be funny to see her be the first one to move out, because everyone always said she would live with my mother forever. I'm proud of her, and I love her. Edit wow, my first gold. Story 6. IQ of 87 here. I saw somebody else has 90 IQ whose story is very similar to mine. Words just don't seem to click in college. My brain gets saturated after about 2 hours or so, and I can't remember any studying past that. There's no chance at studying the last minute, and it's weird to be the smartest in the family despite obvious flaws. I seem to have zero ability to think outside the box. It happens from time to time, and it's extremely satisfying when it does. Lastly, my working memory and comprehension is not very good, which is what an IQ test is based on. This means when I'm literally at work in my retail job, sometimes I completely forget what I was doing or where I put an object a customer was supposed to get edit sorry for those who had to wait 7 to 9 hours for a reply. I made the post at 230-ish in the morning. Oh, and thank for the silver and upvotes because this is the most popular post I've ever made. Story 7. I have low IQ, but I was never tested for anything else. My parents are actual geniuses. Both have poor background but managed to succeed. All my siblings are smart also. I had trouble following teachers and other kids in classes. It took way more time and more examples to figure something out. I never had the time to do anything else than study. I don't think I've had friends since kindergarten. I can't talk to people. I have trouble understanding most jokes in a reasonable amount of time. I never understood deeper meaning in any movies, songs, or books, even when somebody explained them to me. The thing that screwed me up the most is the you can do anything you want if you work hard enough thing we say to the kids. Because it worked for my parents, they thought it will work for me. And not just them, all motivational speakers, all teachers. I worked 10 times more literally than other kids, so I was actually pretty good in high school. I thought that uni is going to be the same. Just by going there and working hard, I will get my degree. What happened was that I couldn't follow courses after the introductory stuff. I somehow passed the first year, but I was kicked out after second year because my exam results were so bad. I developed several sleep disorders, several addictions, and am in huge debt as a result of my 2 failed years in uni. I can't even get my driver's license. There are too many things on the road to keep track of. Now I'm jobless. I can't even get a job as a janitor, and I genuinely don't know what I'm going to do. I had a job at a lumber mill for 2 days until I injured a coworker. I had a job at a restaurant, but I was fired from there also because of my character. My dream was never to earn a lot of money or anything similar. My dreams were things that 99% of people experience, like getting a proper job, so I wouldn't depend on my parents, getting a degree to make my parents proud, and to prove to people that IQ is meaningless. Learning how to drive, getting married, and getting kids. Now all those things are impossible, and I have 50 long years of my miserable life to live. Story 8. I don't know if I'm actually below average, but I have a learning disability, I'm ADHD, and I always struggled really hard in school. I would stay up all night studying my off, only to make either a D or an F. Sometimes I see if I was lucky. I really studied. I feel like as an adult, it's been a bit easier to learn some things now, that I don't have the pressure of tons of schoolwork and teachers assuming I'm lazy and telling me to try harder. I've taught myself how to keep a budget really well. I've taught myself how to start a reselling business and even track my expenses really well. I feel like I function all right, but am very intimidated by a lot of things that I'm supposed to do as an adult. Anything to do with taxes really scares me because I'm terrified it'll mess them up somehow. I'm really shy in conversations because I have trouble pulling the words out of my brain to explain how I feel about a subject. If I'm writing out what I want to say, I can do pretty well, but speaking it is very intimidating. I have a lot of opinions on things and love to learn different viewpoints on things, but I'm terrified of someone trying to debate me or have a conversation with me about any of those things because I don't know how to repeat anything I've learned. I just have it stored in my brain and can't put it into words easily. Basically, it's contributed to a lot of my social anxiety, and I have a major inferiority complex. I'm 30 years old, and I feel like such a late bloomer in every possible way. My mom at my age was already married with 2 children and fully established in her life. I'm nowhere near that point. I'm just now learning the basics of being an adult. I feel like all of my 20s was an extension of my teenage years. I feel embarrassed of myself, honestly. Story 9. I have dyslexia, dyscalculia, and ADHD, but an IQ of 120, it's known as the family curse, above average IQs, but lots of learning disabilities that make it hard to show. Everyone in my family was bullied growing up for being stupid, including me. It was hard for me to find friends because of it. My brother was beaten up regularly for it. I couldn't read until 4th grade. Then I had a teacher tell me I'd never do anything with my life. That day, I started spending all my free time learning how to read just to give her and the world the middle finger and prove I could do something with my life. After that, while I got good grade, I was still seen as stupid or lazy. I had to work 5 times as hard on everything I did just to keep up. I'm in college now and have accommodations for the first time, which really helps, but also draws more attention to it. I had a friend tell me, college isn't for everyone. I found out later he was making fun of my intelligence with other classmates behind my back. I stopped talking to him. Is it all bad? No, having to work extra hard for everything in school has seeped into every part of my life. Now that I have accommodations, I feel like I'm unstoppable. At my college, I'm an honor roll student going into geology, president of the STEM club, founder and president of the board games club, part of the student leadership council. And sometimes the college lets me call bingo numbers at events. I love college. What I want people to know about what it's like to be me, it's a lot like a fish being told to climb a tree and not going to be good at everything you're good at. And that's fine. I don't need to be, I have my own strengths, and that doesn't make me any less worthy of respect, love, or a good life. Edit, thank you to everyone for sharing your stories. I'm loving reading them, and I'm trying to respond to as many as I can. Also, thank you, kind internet stranger, for my first award. Story 10, I'm very autistic and have ADHD IQ in the 70s, so it's kind of a mixed bag. I have a great memory for facts, so I did well in grade school, even got in advanced classes, but as an adult, I'm really struggling. I don't learn very easily, and I don't take instructions well. I can get lost in familiar places. I can't play complex games and get really confused by a lot of things, even normal things like folding towels. I come across like and I can be explained in child's terms how to do something, and it takes me at least 3 times every single time. Not every time I do something new. I mean, literally every time I do, it's very frustrating because they'll say I'm not smart. And people will be like, no, don't say that. You're smart. But the thing is, I'm not even sad about being dumb. I have other good qualities. I'm funny. I'm pretty. I'm kind. I'm so sick of people acting like intelligence worth when that's not at all the case. I'm okay with being slow. Don't pretend not to make me feel better, because what's going to happen is you're going to expect me to be able to do things as if I'm smarter than I am. And then you'll be frustrated when I don't. Pretty much the hardest part is when people, especially on Reddit, pretend intelligence is the only thing that matters when it's maybe among the last things that matter to me personally in a friendship. And also it's frustrating because if you're a kind person who doesn't fit their drooling idiot image, people write it off as low self-esteem. And then whenever you act dumb, you're doing it on purpose to prove a point. Story 11, one of my brothers always had a slight mental disability. Maybe you could say below average intelligence. But the things he takes interest in, he often thrives. However, he can struggle to understand things that others would consider almost common sense. He was never diagnosed with anything, or there was never a clear label. I think the worst thing my siblings and I were ever told was that he had some sort of mental disability. Because growing up, we were only 2 years apart. For a long time, we were best friends. Essentially, we were Irish twins. Suddenly, he had something wrong with him, and my siblings treated him slightly different, and so did I. We just assumed that he didn't understand things that we did, etc., almost similar to how humans treat animals. We are more intelligent, therefore superior. I remember when I was about 13 years old, my brother 15, and we had a massive fight over something silly. In retaliation, I said, well, at least I'm not stupid like you. He stormed off and locked himself in the bathroom. Immediately, I felt bad and begged him to open the door so I could apologize. I found him crying, and he said to me, I know there's something wrong with me, but I just can't understand what it is. At that moment, my heart broke. I realized how awful I was to have ever put him in such a box over some minor difference. Since then, I don't treat him any different to anyone else. My siblings still treat him differently to each of us, which is a shame, but it often makes me think, who really is the one with a mental deficiency? Because so what if you struggle with something? We all struggle with something. At the end of it all, he's still my best friend, and we both have each other's backs through everything, and I don't trust anyone quite the same that I trust, and we as humans put so much weight on intelligence. Although I think it's important to understand everyone's struggle. Sometimes the worst thing we can do is attach a label or a description which can completely diminish their intrinsic value as a person. So I'm writing this for him to say just treat everyone with respect and consideration, and suddenly things like low IQ or mental disability become obsolete. Story 12, I was not quite qualified for the normal school, but they let go anyway to try it out. I remember the admission IQ test. I knew it was a test and thought there must be some kind of secret bonus answers, like the cube might fit in the triangle hole somehow, since the sides of the cube are smaller than the long side of the triangle. I'm not smart. There's quite a few times I miss what might seem like obvious details. Overall, I've done okay, though a lot of things have been more stressful than they should be because I'm constantly second-guessing myself. Story 13, I learned to read novels before I started school at 4. I just got things and excelled to the point I was bored. Then I was punched in the head. I'm in my 30s now, still desperately trying to get into university, but knocked back constantly. Can't retain information I hear, and slow to process it sometimes. I'm talking days. I'm a visual, can really learner. I'm poor, will never own my own home because I can't get a job that pays well enough to save. I have no friends and no connections. Can't help my kids with their math homework at all, so feel like a failure. As a functioning adult, it's difficult because people expect so much more from us than we are able to do or give, which makes us hate ourselves even more. Story 14, I have some developmental problems like ADHD after years of not doing well in school and wanting to drop out, getting hives from stress, and actually developing heart palpitations from all the stress I was under. I've come to realize that I hate the education system's way of gauging intelligence. I at math hard. Other people excel at it, but other people won't be as good as me at identifying animal species and knowing facts about them. Other people won't be as good at me at drawing, which takes a plethora of knowledge like anatomy and perspective. My autistic cousin can't understand social cues and never went to school because of it, but can build a vacuum cleaner and runs a business at 17. My older sister, who also has ADHD, is currently doing a PhD at only 24, but she has a hard time doing addition and telling time. I really do hate the fact that everyone's existence for the majority of their life is summed up in numbers determined by people who don't even know them. I know this isn't exactly what Opie asked, but our education system and the IQ test is just so biased. I get heated about it, lol. I kind of hate the idea that there can even be an average intelligence. Like, what about the impoverished people who never had the chance for a school education? Or the people who live in tribes isolated from society? Maybe they won't know about tube worms, mathematical equations, or linguistics, but they sure as will know a lot more about the environment that they live in than I could ever hope to. Story 15, have a degenerative neurological disease, and am freaked out about my mental decline. I tested nuclear reactors for a living, and have an incredibly analytic, for example. It took my 5 minutes to remember that word mind, and I've noticed that I become a little slower at processing things, that my non-existent artistic side has started twitching. I still can't bring my artistic ideas to become physical art, but my thought process has shifted drastically, and I do have to smoke a lot of cannabis, so that probably contributes too. My wife and kids understand the changes because they see me daily, but my parents just get frustrated at me. So even though they live 5 minutes down the road, I haven't actually seen them for almost a year now. They tell everyone it's because I'm ungrateful, but I'm not exactly sure why they think that. They would argue in front of me about who will fasten my seatbelt, and so I'm better off. They like to ignore what I ask for and just give me what they feel I need with disregard to anything I actually tell them. To be fair, I was never going to be a vice president of a Fortune 500 company like my brother, and I had a kid very early. So I went to college in my late 20s, finishing in 4 years with honors while working full-time. So for whatever reason, they love saying, like, don't you wish you did college like your brother? And I'm like, dude, I have 3 degrees and was in charge of nuclear reactors. Story 16, reading comments. Learning disability doesn't equal less intelligence. My brother scored pretty high IQ, but has been diagnosed with a learning disability. I mean, a person can be great at school because they were great at memorizing and taking tests doesn't equal high intelligence either. Learning disability might mean you might need more help with certain aspects of learning because your brain processes information different than average person and not low IQ. Story 17, not technically below average, but my neurologist psychologist, not sure which, said I had the biggest disparity between cognitive functioning she had ever seen. I was in the 90th percentile for things like reasoning and in the 10th percentile for speed. My entire life has been that feeling of, after a conversation, you realize what you should have said. Story 18, I was born with fetal alcohol syndrome disorder, have borderline personality disorder and depression and anxiety. I'm a mess some days, but because I'm high functioning, I have good days too. Sometimes ITL be a good day in the morning and a bad day in the afternoon, and vice versa. I need things explained to me thoroughly and slowly, sometimes, or from a different approach. I have learned over the many 28 years to be exact, to voice that I need help or am having trouble understanding. A lot of people say to me, you don't seem like you have a disorder, or you look normal. That's only because I have been raised to know of my disorders and to ask for help when needed. Story 19, I passed an IQ test a while ago in a general testing for ADHD. The results were so extremely heterogeneous that my general IQ is irrelevant, but in one test, data processing speed, I fell below average, especially for people with my educational cursus with a score of 83. I can tell that I was not surprised. All my life, it took me a very long time to make complex operations. I tend to get lost, have to start again, verify everything 100 times, etc. Basically, I'm always the one pulling my hairs and getting angry at a simple logical problem just because different informations need to be held to use later, and I'm totally incapable of that. Happily, the medication already start to help a lot. Story 20, attention. Serious tag, notice jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted in any comment, parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit message compose or AskReddit if you have any questions or concerns. Story 21. So I was placed in learning disability programs from grade 1 to grade 7. Because of my level of intelligence, I had to repeat a year of middle school as well. I am now a resident doctor at the top university program in Canada. Story 22, some really inspiring people on this forum willing to speak out. Thank you. Some interesting things I've learned over the years about IQ and perceived intelligence. My wife tested multiple times and always below 100 for IQ. She can't find her way out of paper bag. So bad is her directional skills and awareness that she can't often retrace her steps to the starting point. Thank goodness for mobile phones. She has many of these weird and wonderful traits. However, she has a PhD in cardiology, master's in public health, runs her own business, and consults with government, and gets invited to international conferences as guest speaker. She is terrible at coming up with common phrases on the spot, jokes, and observations. But given prep time to plan out, she can lead World Health expert conferences with her talks and speeches. She is meticulous and works extremely hard within her skillet. She does also have amazing memory of most things in her past to extremely vivid details, not didactic, but can't remember something from 5 minutes ago. Shall recheck turning off the stove 5 times. She can imaging programming code in her head, but can't operate a DVD. She is the smartest person in the right circumstances, but the dumbest in others. Me, on the other hand, always seem to do well at IQ tests. Can remember random facts from years ago that I read and regurgitated at random when topic situations come up, and so great for trivia quizzes. I have an instinct with directions and generally go by instinct. I'm in IT and can't code to save my life. I steal adapt code if I had to in uni to get by. However, I troubleshoot and manage enterprise networks for a living and good at it. I can read people easily and provide and analyze to someone, but incapable of using that to my advantage. I can sit back and see it, but directly with people doesn't link up to it. I forget, so pay bills, keep lists in my head when specifying things like grocery, so need aids like smartphones, also terrible with visualizations in my head that doesn't exist, aka imaging a room with a specific window door decker, nah sorry honey, also terrible at remembering numbers. I have many more things I'm bad at, can't remember, lol. Yes, I'm the guy who says the smart aleck quips and makes the joking observation that kills the room at random. In the dumbest person in some circumstances and the smartest in others. Point is, most people should not get too caught up in IQ test spectrum. It's a guide using a specific protocol that may or may not suit your brain. Important thing is find what you are good at and nurture, explore it. My wife found hers at a young age and has never stopped and works every day at helping kids with disabilities or business. Has not always been the same immediate goal, but the journey isn't one step. Just because you don't have a skill doesn't mean you don't have others. Try it out. Work at it. I know circumstances mean you CNSD, do anything with it for now. But even for yourself, do it for your own satisfaction. Doesn't need anyone to see it or acknowledge it. Work with what you got, because that's all we got to start with. Me, on the other hand, is happy-go-lucky and more selfish in nature. We are definitely yin and yang. Yes, I'm very lucky to have her. Story 23, I have trouble understanding anything math-related. I've only passed one math class, and it was with an amazing teacher my junior year. It's like my mind can't understand it at all. And I had countless tutors and the like. My ACT composite was a 25 with a 33 in English and 32 in reading, but my math score was a 14. I'm honestly worried because I start college this fall, and I have to take a remedial course, and I feel like I'm going to fail that as well. I've cried during geometry tests because I can read it and reread it, but my mind can't put 2 and 2 together. Even with basic things like 50 minus 12, I have to see it and write it down, and usually my answer is still wrong. When I have a good teacher, I excel in a class, but sadly, I've only ever had one. Story 24, everything I do is out of habit. If I haven't been doing it for years, I won't remember to do it unless I have alarms throughout my day. This really hurts me because I've been trying to learn a language for 2 years. And at my peak, I think I was studying a few hours a day for like 6 months. I only remember 3 words for all that effort. I cannot do anything with logic behind it either. I could spend an hour looking at a basic algebra question and really try to get it to not understand it one bit. I hate it. I hate being so stupid. I hate not being able to learn. I hate how I always forget things a day after people say it to me 99,100 times. I hate remembering life in tiny fragments. Sometimes I don't know if I'm dreaming or is this reality. This was caused by intense seizures whole life and stopped breathing at birth. I have no future goals because I'm good at nothing. Life is... Story 25, this doesn't quite apply to me, but it does in a way. I used to be very smart. School was boring because it was too easy. So they put me in the gifted program, which I also hated. In adulthood, my psychiatrist figured I have ADD, which made everything click as to why my attention was so poor despite being so smart. But I also developed persistent depressive disorder around 16 years old, which it turns out is linked to ADD. Got on meds, depression went away. Then after graduating high school, I went through a process of cycling my meds. I take them, feel normal, stop taking them, fall into depression, rinse and repeat. I was miserable all the time because I working jobs that I was too smart for and felt like I was wasting my potential, but I couldn't live up to that potential because I would keep slipping into a depressive episode and let my life fall apart. So I sort of lost the will to live. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life living the life I was living. I didn't have health insurance, so I couldn't see a psychiatrist nor afford to see a doctor. So I didn't know there were city-state programs that could cover it. Once I found out and utilized those resources, I got back on meds, depression went away, and went back to college to get a degree. But I was in a persistent depressive episode for nearly 10 years straight. Depression can cause a lot of damage to your cognitive abilities. I've been healthy for a few years now, but my brain is still a mess. I have very few memories. I have a lot of difficulty remembering things. I have trouble retaining information to the point that I have trouble reading. I can read a page and forget what I just read. My ability to focus is the worst it's ever been. My college grades sucked because it was difficult to remember things. I always performed poorly on tests, and it took me twice as long to do assignments. I can physically feel my brain is not in good shape. I'm trying to do things to improve my brain health like exercising and eating right and reading more books in hopes that it will rebuild my neural pathways. So far I haven't had any luck, but I'm early in the process, and if it will work, then ITLL take time to get there. But to go from knowing you're smart to feeling stupid all the time feels like and has really impacted my self-esteem. Story 26 mine might be one of the biggest causes to my depression. I never feel on par with everyone else. I'm slow to learn things, so that makes it nearly impossible to get a non-basic level job. It's caused me to make so many stupid mistakes at work. If I wasn't such a hard worker and good guy, I would have been let go years ago. And that's coming from my manager. I get told to go do a task. I look at it and think I put A into B, then attach it to C, and that show up LD do it, then get yelled at to use my head, when I'm positive that that is what I just did. It's a hard life, and it's not in my control. Story 27, I see a lot of people in here conflating low IQ with unintelligence, which simply isn't the case. IQ is only one of a multitude of factors that determine intelligence. Story 28, I have a really hard time reading. Due to a condition, I'm actually very intelligent, especially with mathematics. Reading, however, is the bane of my existence. I never even realized how bad I was at reading until college. Social media is sometimes difficult. It's always really embarrassing when people send me Snapchats. I often have to tell them I couldn't read it, and they'd send it again, and I'd tell them again. Other times, someone would show me, and some others a post or meme on their phone, and they'd pull it away when I was only on the fourth or fifth word. I'd always have to say, wait, I'm a slow reader. Very active group chats aren't fun either. This one is the only one that makes me genuinely sad. I ended up stopping reading recreationally. I actually really like reading, but it's depressingly difficult. The last book I read for fun was less than 300 pages and took me almost 2 years. Not even going to get into how hard school is. Particularly classes that are reading-heavy textbooks, assigned reading, research papers. I ended up going into engineering. Numbers are a lot easier. Story 29, I was diagnosed with Asperger's and below average IQ at 13 and struggled academically and socially all throughout high school and had issues with money management in my early 20s. I took a CNA class at 17, and while I did struggle with the state test, I passed on my third attempt. I excelled at the job. My patients love me, and I do very well. I got a financial advisor and currently have a 700 credit score. My bills get paid, have my own house and car, and I'm doing well. But it wasn't easy getting to that point. I struggled. Going through school, I wish people had focused more on my strengths than my weaknesses, and just because my IQ doesn't put me at advanced intelligence doesn't mean I am not smart. I can tell you pretty much anything you need to know about raising animals, growing plants, and incredibly artistic. I feel like the IQ testing held me back from a lot of opportunities. Story 30, this will be buried, but here it is anyway. I have a learning disorder called dyscalculia, think dyslexia with numbers and processing defects, complied with working memory disorder. Overall, this results in an IQ of around 84. How does this affect me? Well, I get 50 extra time in university-level classes regarding math and STEM courses with some other accommodations. But I'm happy to say that I currently have AB in Calc and will eventually complete my degree in ecological science with a 3.0 average. It's tough. I try a lot harder than other students in my university and rarely get above a C in math classes. After spending 15 hours a week on a single class, it can get discouraging. It's absolutely difficult, and many tears have been shed, but I'm happy to say that it's not impossible. I'm also double majoring in English with a creative writing emphasis, and am typically top of my class in English classes. IQ is not destiny. It takes longer for me to pick things up, and math will never be my strength, but I can do it. Story 31 TLDR, I had a rough beginning in school, but life got better after school. I was given an IQ test when I was in 3rd grade. I remember taking the test, and I remember there was a parent conference afterwards, but I never knew the score and never heard the results of the parent conference until I was an adult. Only late in life did I know the discussion was regarding keeping me down a grade. My parents didn't keep me back, so I progressed with my classmates. I always did great in math, but did awful in English or history. I can easily learn ideas and relationships between things, but memorizing facts was never going to happen. I had to cheat my way through catechism because I could not remember Bible verses at all. I remember a 10th grade history class where something went click. I suddenly could read with comprehension. My memories before this event are mostly foggy, so it's like I transitioned from a puppy to a fully formed adult form of me in that class. That's the point where my life truly began. My grades got much better, and I made it into engineering college, and I followed that with a good career in computer design. I still have major issues in my visual cortex. Riding a bike through trees with shadows that go light, dark, quickly seems to hit a reboot button on my brain. I need a minute or so of quiet time before I can ride again. And my music affinity is off the chart. If there's any background music, however quiet, it becomes foreground in my brain, drowning out my ability to follow conversations. They'll never be 100, but then again, who is? I'm functional enough to have good friends and family, and that's all that really matters.